Imagine walking into a Supreme store, red logo, bold white letters, shelves stacked with exclusive drops, except it's not Supreme. The employees are real. The clothes? Fake. The worst part? No one realizes it. This is the story of Supreme Italia, the fake Supreme brand that legally scammed an entire country, partnered with a tech giant, and tricked thousands into buying counterfeit streetwear without breaking the law. At least, not at first. But how did a fake Supreme end up opening official stores while the real Supreme watched helplessly from the sidelines? And how did they almost pull off the biggest fashion scam of the century? Stick around, because this gets insane. The Supreme brand was built on exclusivity. With their infamous limited drops, massive resale prices, and collaborations with brands like Louis Vuitton, Supreme became the pinnacle of streetwear hype. But while Supreme was making millions, they made one crucial mistake. They didn't trademark their name globally. Enter Supreme Italia. In 2015, a company called International Brand Firm, IBF, noticed that Supreme had neglected to trademark its brand in certain countries. The mastermind behind it all was Michele Di Piero, an Italian businessman with a history of exploiting legal loopholes. Alongside his son, Marcello Di Piero, they legally registered the Supreme name in Italy, Spain, and China, where the real Supreme had no legal claim. And suddenly, Supreme Italia was born, not as a knockoff, but as a legal brand. This wasn't some street corner operation selling fake hoodies. They had real storefronts, employees, and a massive inventory of Supreme merchandise that looked nearly identical to the real thing. They even had their own supply chain and manufacturers, pumping out fake Supreme gear at an industrial level. But it didn't stop there. They had one goal: global takeover. Over the next few years, Supreme Italia started opening stores worldwide. And I'm not talking about sketchy back alleys. These were real, luxury-level locations in cities like Shanghai, Beijing, and even Europe. Meanwhile, the real Supreme was losing their minds. They sued, but legally, Supreme Italia owned the trademark in those countries, and local courts were siding with them. Then, in 2018, Supreme Italia made its biggest power move yet. They announced a partnership with Samsung. Yes, you heard that right. Samsung, a billion-dollar tech giant, held a press event in China, proudly unveiling a Supreme x Samsung collaboration. They showed off Supreme-branded phones, accessories, and even teased a massive Supreme flagship store in Beijing. The crowd cheered. Tech blogs covered it. Investors took notice. There was just one problem. The Supreme that Samsung partnered with wasn't real. When the actual Supreme headquarters in New York found out, they immediately released a statement. "We have no affiliation with Supreme Italia, and we have not authorized any partnership with Samsung." Suddenly, Samsung realized they had been scammed. They pulled the deal overnight. But by then, Supreme Italia had already made millions. By 2019, Supreme Italia had expanded into Europe, opening stores in cities like Barcelona and Madrid, continuing to fool thousands of customers into believing they were buying real Supreme merchandise. But as their operation grew, so did the backlash. The real Supreme kept fighting in court and finally started winning lawsuits in different regions. Governments began cracking down on counterfeit trademarks, and by 2020, the fake Supreme empire started collapsing. In 2021, the law finally caught up with Michele and Marcello Di Piero. The Italian courts found them guilty of trademark counterfeiting and fraud, sentencing Michele to 8 years in prison, while Marcello received a 3-year sentence. Their company was also hit with massive fines totaling millions. However, both men were absent from the trial. As of now, it remains unclear whether they have actually served their sentences or managed to evade prison time. Their whereabouts remain uncertain, leaving the story of Supreme Italia open-ended. At the end of the day, Supreme Italia proved one thing. When hype outweighs reality, The difference between a billion-dollar brand and a billion-dollar scam is just a few legal documents.